Coming up this week on the Digital Lifestyle Show 797, Gary's here, and we'll be looking at the new build of Windows 10 that's got changes to File Explorer to all the icons. It's quite it's quite a change to the look and feel, so we'll be talking about that. We've got some videos on that as well. We'll also be talking about other Windows Insider news. We've got some smart home news, we've got some retro computing news, EV news, all sorts of stuff. So let's get straight to Gary. Gary, good evening.
Good evening, Ian.
Yeah, and here we are live at the MVP Summit.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
So
maybe from our own homes, but we are live at the MVP.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's the MVP Summit, and normally an in-person event. It was scheduled for in-person last year, and I was going to go for the first time last year, and surprisingly, didn't get there last year. It was cancelled quite last minute, though, wasn't it?
Yeah, we had our bookings in place, and
yeah,
it would have been fun, but there we go.
Yeah. So yeah, this year the MVP Summit is also virtual again. So we've been going to various sessions over last couple of days, and there's a couple more days of it. Some really interesting stuff. There's nothing we can really talk about apart from to say that as a Windows insider, if you're a Windows insider, Microsoft do listen to your feedback. So if you're interested in Windows 10 and testing Windows 10, and you're on the insider rings and you submit your feedback through the feedback hub, they do listen to what you're saying. So you can make a difference with that. So that's probably one takeaway. And the other thing is there's stuff coming, we hope, but we don't know what, and we can't wait to find out what it is, but no one will tell us.
Yeah, actually.
It looks like it's going to be a busy year for Windows, which is good. I think we've had a couple of quiet years, and I think we've got a busy year, and which actually leads us on to some of the things we can talk about today, because we have got a new build, or we did get a new build of Windows 10 with some of the UI changes that we've talked about recently in the build. So we can have a look at that. So that looks quite interesting, and I've got remember I asked about how to connect your ZX Spectrum up to a HDMI monitor. Yeah. So I got some feedback on that. So we can mention that.
I've got a smart home question from the audience, so which is again take me down another rabbit hole. So I'll talk about that as well.
Okay, so we'll start then with last week's build. We had Insider build 21343 for Windows Insiders on the Dev channel, and up until the last few weeks there's been very little going through those, but we're now starting to see some changes coming through. Maybe this is how they're going to the change are going to come this summer, or whether they'll go for a big bang, I'm not sure. But the main change, I'll share my monitor so that I can include this in the video, is we've got new icons in File Explorer, and I was trying to think when the current icons were introduced, and was it Windows 7 or was it Windows Vista? I'm not quite sure.
Vista, actually, I think.
I
could be wrong, but that's where my head is.
Yeah, I think it was around that time. So has that popped up? Yeah, that's popping up there now. Okay, that should be there in the video. So yeah, so we've got these new icons. So the desktop downloads, pictures, all that is very different to what we're currently seeing. And if I can put over, so what we've got here on the left side is my Surface that's on release preview, and here is the screenshots from the blog post. I have recorded a video of this, so you can see all this in action. But you see these new desktop, they've got the nice colors in there. One thing I found as well is that they look a lot they're a lot more distinctive than the previous ones. So at a glance you can really see which folder is which when you're looking at those. So they've got different colors. So the previous ones, or the current ones, is a sort of a manila folder with an icon, which are all sort of bluish. But now you've got sort of the desktop's one color. In fact, the desktop reminds me of the color of the live mesh folders. Do you remember those? Windows live mesh folders?
Yeah, indeed. Yeah.
Where pictures is like a blue and downloads is a green, and it's that visual style that Microsoft have been going for recently. And these look a lot different, kind of a flatter style. They're not on the angle anymore as well. all in all, anyway, I think they just have that more modern look to them and a fresher look. In fact, I'll roll a video on. I can show that. So I recorded a video with these changes, which I've done a couple of videos. So one with just the changes and one with the full sort of build video. In fact, you can see here, I'm seeing on the screen, you can see you've got the icons down there that have changed. I also noticed in the settings, a lot of the icons have changed as well. So they're gradually going through all these and sort of modernizing those, modernizing these icons. But there wasn't just that in it as well. I should actually go back to the blog post. So as well as that, they've made some improvements with Sandbox and Defend Application Guard. So Sandbox has the proper Chromium-based Edge built into it, and a new runtime. I must admit, since I originally installed Sandbox last year, I haven't really done any playing with it. I don't know if it's something you use, because I sort of use virtualization of testing stuff, but not using Sandbox.
Yeah, I've tended to stick with virtualization. I guess it's what you're used to. I think that's where we've been used to using it. So tend not to think to use the Sandbox, and sometimes probably the Sandbox would be a better option.
Yeah, especially for testing things out. You know, you can run it and then shut it down, and it sort of clears it out. So yeah, that was in there. There was some other changes as well. They included Windows Administrative Tools is now called Windows Tools, which makes sense.
Yep.
And there was some language interest. It's funny, some people still getting using interest, but most people aren't getting that at the moment. That's gone. But coming back soon, I hope.
Yep, we hope.
And there's a huge amount of fixes in this build as well. Scrolling through it, the one thing, word of warning though, is if you're a gamer, you may have some issues with syncing and that kind of thing. So I would avoid this if you're a gamer. Maybe skip this build. But I've found that these dev builds are never that good for gaming anyway. So you probably, if you've got a gaming machine, you're always better sticking to release preview, release, or even most beta. So those are the changes in those builds. Anyway, but I do like these new icons. I think that it's a nice visual change and well worth the new look that it gives to that. It's funny, isn't it? I guess as a developer, Gary, when you go from if you're selling a version 2 to your customers or something like that, do you find that you put all the effort in the back end and all the work that you put in, to make it solid and reliable and fast and everything else, and then you make a few visual changes and that gets all the headlines?
Yeah, all they care about is the new icon. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's usually the case. It's style over substance, unfortunately, with a lot of people. I tend to be a substance over style person, which probably makes me a really terrible developer. But
yeah, yeah, I must admit, when you look to these builds, it's always the look, something shiny and new that makes a difference. I have found that my surface goes slowed down a bit on these recent builds, so I think it might be getting close to that point where a refresh would probably be a good idea. But that's always the way of getting the speed back. Now, the other thing we got last week was we had some releases going to the beta and release preview channel, and this follows on to something that I mentioned last week. We were talking with Richard about the print icons, and I couldn't remember that particular the update that caused the printing problems going out through Windows Insiders, and I wasn't sure they were testing that, but I was actually wrong. They did test that through Windows Insiders. Because the build that had the update had the problem, I did look back through, and actually it did hit the beta channel a few weeks ago. So they are going through that chat, because I was questioning whether that was happening, but yeah, it is happening. So the updates do start off in the beta channel, get to release preview, and then to the general Windows users. Obviously, they don't go in the dev, but they are in those other two. Because last week we got two sets of updates. We got 19.043.906, and there was another one, and the 19042.906. So either release preview and the beta channel. So the release preview and beta channels still seem to be synced up pretty much and running the same content. The updates are the same on those packages were the same, just a different build number. So I imagine at some point 21H1 will ship, and then things will shift around again. But we can't be far off 21H1 shipping now.
You wouldn't have thought so, would you? I mean, would expect it to be fairly close. I mean, it's H1. It's H1, isn't it? I mean, there's not much left of H1. So
I think 20H1 went shipped in April last year.
Yeah, it did. Yeah. So I mean, April seems about the right time of the year for to ship the H1. Yeah.
And it's interesting with the challenges that Microsoft putting these builds out, continuing, and the cadence of the builds has not changed. Well, they've all shifted to working from home, like we all have. Really, we've all managed to somehow operate working differently for the last year. But so these cadence builds hasn't changed. But yeah, 21H1 should be out soon, and it is a minor update. It's not a full build, so you're not going to see any major features. But these things like the new icons, they're going to come in the next release, I would imagine. Although they don't have to. They could be. They've split the way that the builds are split now. They could release part of this earlier or later. But I imagine they're working towards a 21H2. And then that's what the new icons will go into. And they also released a feature pack as well, didn't they, last week as well, which also just had the one fix in it as well. So yeah, they're testing a lot of these Windows updates for, and servicing updates at the moment. Anyway, so that's the new builds, and I do like these new icons. Even the DVD drive icon's been updated as well. So those are all the changes that we got through the Windows Insider program last week. I said I've got some videos of all these up on our YouTube channel, and in fact, the video of this of 21343 has gone into the thousands. I think it's nearly 7,000 views in a week, when normally it's in the 1,000 range. So either the Google algorithm is pushing my video out higher, or there's more people searching for this build and finding my video. I don't know. I've mentioned this before. It's not always possible to predict how popular these build videos can be, because sometimes I think, oh, this is a really good build and there's a lot of changes and I've got the video out fast and it's taken a while and it's not really taken off, but other ones have. So this one has. So people are interested in visual changes. I think that's the summary of that. Right. Okay. What else? Now, Gary, you said you had a smart home readers.
Yeah, I did. God, this after last week's one, which blew my mind. This is another one which proved very challenging. So it was a comment from a guy called Paul, who said that he was having a lot of issues with his Lightwave RF, which he knew I used, and wondered if I'd had similar issues. And yes, the web servers have been very slow of late, and there's been a lot of delays. Particularly if you're using the Alexa skill, it can take forever to turn the light on or off. You sort of quite a few seconds from saying turn the light off to actually turning it off. Although tonight's been quick. I was going to demo it and show how slow it was, but tonight's actually been quick as usual. But yeah, so it's been taking 10-15 seconds sometimes for the lights to turn off from the time you've actually said you want to turn them off. But he remarked that I note that if I do it from the app it's a lot quicker, and that's because the app's doing local control. He's got Lightwave Connect, which is the original Lightwave RF. There's now a new version, some Lightwave RF Smart, which is a two-way communication. Lightwave RF Connect was a single-way 433 megahertz RF transmission, and it's got a hub. I mean, it's got the Lightwave RF hub, which is I think it's called the Lightwave RF Link originally, and there's two versions. There's one with a screen on, one without a screen. And basically, the way the app works is it sends out UDP messages to that hub to actually get it to do things, which led me to think, oh, is that possible from some of these other control hubs, some of these local control hubs? And obviously I've been playing a bit with smart things lately, so I thought I'd start looking into this. And it would led me down a lot of paths and difficulties and things, because it turns out that smart things doesn't send UDP messages out. It's one of the few you can do web requests, but you can't do UDP. So, but someone had to come up with a solution for this, which I actually think is quite an elegant way of doing it. They basically created a Node.js server, which actually then sends the UDP control. So it basically is creating an API on the Node.js server, which is just a server you could host on a Pi, or in my case, I hosted it in the Linux subsystem for Windows, which Richard will be very pleased to hear. So I did download a quick DB and installed it and had it up and running in about 3 minutes from the time I actually read it. Just following the guy's instructions, which are on the Smart Things forum. You want to search for Lightwave RF local control and Smart Things, it'll come up. And yeah, and it works really well. You send the message to Smart, you create the device with Smart Things, and you press the button and it turns off instantly. There's no delay at all, and turns on instantly as well. Now the only slight complication here is that again, this is something I just didn't realise. All the details of the names of the rooms and the names of the devices are only held on the Lightwave RF servers. They're not held locally at all, so the hubs doesn't know anything about names of devices. All it knows is room number and device number within that room, and that's actually quite difficult to work out, because even if you've got the app and you can go down and say, oh, I've got 12 rooms, and in this room I've got 3 devices, so that must be device 3 I want to switch on. It might not be, because you've deleted and added other devices over time. It increments the number. So you could, if you deleted 3 devices, it could actually be device number 6, and there's actually no way of telling. You just have to sort of suck it up and do it. So, so I put my developer head in. I'm actually going to try and solve this one by creating a small app to actually download that data from the Lightwave and give you a list of the devices and rooms.
Yeah, cache it locally so that you can use,
well, I can probably create it, because the way we also talk about best parts of things. It's quite interesting, because this is likely to go away, because Smart Things is changing this year, and I think they're going to do away with a lot of the stuff which is really quite clever about Smart Things, but make it easier for Samsung to maintain it and have less costs, I guess. But at the moment, you can create things called Smart Apps and smart device handlers, and they both use a programming language called Groovy, which is a version of Java, and you can write little plugins to do virtually anything. Actually, I mean, if you've got a little bit of programming skill, you can make it do just about anything using these plugins. So what I'll do is I'll hopefully knock up a smart app to download that information and go off and dynamically create all these little devices to do the local control, because I think having the local control is brilliant. I mean, it is so much quicker. It's really instantaneous. And the other thing it's allowed me to do, actually, let me just reach across here. I'm just going to disappear off screen for a second.
Okay. And it disappears through his virtual background as well, so and then he reappears back to it.
And I'm back. So I just wanted to grab this, and I don't know if it will show up on screen, because obviously the camera thing, I might have to turn the background off so you can actually see this temporarily. Let's switch the background stuff off. Turn off show background effects. Very temporary. You can see the mess of my bedroom there. But yeah, I don't know if you can see, if I hold that up. So that's a little Osram Smart Plus Zigbee switch, and I've actually now managed to code this to work with directly on the light switch. You probably can't see that actually, but it just turned the light switch off immediately. I pressed that button.
Yeah, just about. Yeah.
So and it'll turn it back on again. So it works really well, and it's a very powerful tool, I think, to the whole Smart Things. I mean, but that's interesting. So I'm using a Zigbee switch to turn off a Lightwave RF controlled light. So yeah, it's an interesting concept, how you can sort of get all these things together. And yeah, I mean, I could do that a lot easier before using the Pi and the Butix if I knew the programming language is that. But I think Smart Things has got a huge community out there, and there's a lot of people helping sort of junior programmers and people who's just getting started to do some pretty cool stuff in the automations. And of course, you've then got all the automation tools that you can plug in to do it, and all the stuff we talked about last week. It's really good. So anyway, I've been back to Paul about that, and yeah, we've got. I think he's now got a solution which he's happy with to get his, because he had only a few lights, so he could work out what room lights he had.
Yeah. Oh, that's quite a good solution. It's always, I know it's always fun when you can get to roll your own as well and play about with your own solution.
Yeah, it's good. I mean, I've done all sorts of things with playing with these marketing tabs. I'm doing a couple of reviews on stuff anyway at the moment. And so things like controlling the garage doors and the gates and things like that with it as well. And then you can get into some pretty clever automation scripting with it. There's a thing called Core, which basically allows you to create all sorts of I think they call them pistons, which are sort of automation rules, and you can get really complicated. I mean, you certainly don't run out of ifs and thens and that's in this case. You've got multiples, and you can sort of do all sorts of clever ruling. So you can sort of do things like open the gate if someone's gone out in the last half hour and is coming back, but don't open it if they've just gone out, haven't gone far enough, or just standing outside. So it works really well.
Well, that's quite a neat solution. Yeah, it's quite good. You get these, get the reader tips in, listener tips in, and then you do come up with some interesting stuff. I actually took a smart home as well. It's one thing I need to work out how to do is I've noticed with my. Well, while I've been at home, it's not been an issue. But when my wife's listening to music on the Amazon device with the Sonos account, we've got a family Sonos account, it's all fine. But when I'm out in the car, if I was out driving normally, I would be listening to my Sonos. I would be listening to not Sonos, the Spotify, I should say. So my wife's listening to Spotify on the Amazon device or using the Sonos, and I've been in, so it's not a problem. But when I've been going out in the car and I listen to mine, it turns one off because it's using my account. So, or if I'm out driving and listening to my podcasts and she puts it on via Alexa, it turns mine off because it's my account. So, because when I linked my Amazon account with Spotify, I did it all using my account, which made sense at the time. But when that multi-user mode doesn't work like that, so that's not going to work. So what I've got to do, and I'm pretty sure it's straightforward, is sort of deregister my Spotify account from the Amazon service and put somebody else's in, so it makes sense to my wife's phone because she's the only other person probably in the house that would be listening anyway. So that's what I've got to do. So you got to be careful when you set the family ones up, how you set them up. But it's been that long since I set mine up, I can't remember exactly how I do it. So I think you just have to sign in with your user account. When I checked before, you have to disable the skill, then enable the skill, and sign in with the user account you want associated. So because I was wondering why I was getting some odd musical recommendations on my Spotify playlist, and now I know why. So these shared accounts and things, it gets it's a lot more complicated than it was when you had just your own device that you were all listening to. So I was wondering why, but I was listening to my Formula One podcast. It would get just cut off, and then it would be a bit of a war then between us both trying to put it back on. So one person's playing it, the other person says playing it. Spotify doesn't know what to do.
It's like very much like as we mentioned, I've moved and combining households and trying to bring Alexas, which are on one set of accounts into a household with another set of accounts. And yes, you can have them on separate accounts, and you can join the two accounts as a family. But then the devices are actually on different nodes, I suppose, and you can actually use them for, say, things like music sharing. You can't create a music group with devices which go across two different accounts, which would be nice actually. I mean, it'd be great to actually have separate accounts, so I can have my I could have one device, say, in the office, which is my device, and only knows about my music, and is always in my account, and the other ones are not. But it's not so easy to do that, because then you can't. If you did want to put that as a whole part of the whole house audio at times, and you couldn't do that. So it's always going to be its own little island. So yeah, so it's an interesting concept, and it's quite tricky to decommission these and recommission them.
Yeah. And I also think I found that if you're on different, in fact, the device is linked to different Amazon accounts. They don't cancel each other out when they're listening, do they? So my sons have got their own on their own accounts, and if you go in their room and say turn on light, it turns on their light, their individual light. But if the Alexa in my office hears them talking, it thinks it means this one. But normally the Alexas will sort of talk to each other and cancel, so only one actions it. But when they're on different accounts, of course, it doesn't do that.
Yeah, and my top advice here is to put everything on the same device if it's in the same house. You can still have different accounts and switch to a different account on that particular device. But it's different users effectively. But you basically have them all owned by the same account.
Right.
So that then you get that cancellation happening. But it's something that could be improved. I think they have got family sharing stuff, and it just doesn't work very well. I think they could do with improving that.
Yeah, and because we've all got our own, all four of us have got our own Amazon accounts.
Yeah.
And then so we need a better way of sort of linking them together, because everyone apart from the individual ones in the lads' rooms is linked to my account. So for shopping lists and everything else, I guess it could be on mine.
Yeah, it would be. So you could have it as family account and have them as family members, and there's a lot of things you can do like that, and you can switch to accounts on them then and just play different. If you go in their room, you can switch to your account and play your music. But the problem is again that they are individual islands, and the shame is it actually knows where they are. I mean, the Alexa asks you what the location of these devices. It knows which house they're in. So it should know that they're all in the same place and be able to work it out from that. Not as advanced as it could be. One other thing I found out today, which I didn't actually know, and I was watching Paul Hibbert's video, and he then links across to another video, and on YouTube, and I didn't realise they haven't enabled the chips in the new Alexa devices in the UK. So all the new Echoes and so the Echo Show 10, which I've got testing it over in the corner here, the one which rotates around, quite interesting. Cups of coffee over quite regularly. You just have to make sure you don't put anything in the way. But yeah, that and the new Echoes have all got the new Alexa AI chip in them, which is really advanced and can do a lot. And it's turned on in the States, and it makes voice response really good. Whereas I found all the new Echoes, and particularly Echo Show, are really poor at picking up the keyword compared to the previous level devices in the UK. And I wonder why. I was thinking, this new chip's pretty rubbish, but it actually turns out they just haven't turned it on in the UK for some reason.
Right.
Which is weird, and I just wonder when they are likely to. Because I mean, this Echo Show 10 would be a great device otherwise. I mean, it really is good. The one thing I really like about it, and I forget who I'll try and find which reviewer it was who said this, but basically they pointed out the fact that because it turns to face you all the time, the audio quality is really good, because you've got the speakers pointing to you at all times. Because it's not just the screen turns, the whole unit turns, so your speakers are always facing you, which is really quite clever thought. No matter where you are in the room, you've always got that proper stereo placement from the speakers, or the mono speaker, but proper placement from the speakers. So yeah, it's really good.
Yeah, that's true, because in the older days when we had hi-fi separates, which I've still got behind me there, and the speakers are over there. They're up there because I use them for monitoring for the music stuff, really. But ideally, if it was a proper hi-fi, I'd have one in each corner, and I'd have the seat in the middle and everything. Yeah. Because that used, I don't know whether people still use it. I mean, with 5.1 it is, but people used to really worry about speaker positions with hi-fis.
Yeah.
Because of that thing with the stereo separation. So if the unit is always pointed at you, you're going to always get a good stereo separation.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know whether people bother with the stereo separation. I certainly don't, because the Sonos speakers are all although they are stereo, there's one in the corner like there is behind me here. So there's that kind of thing. So it's a shame actually, because I think we as a music listeners, we're probably missing out a bit on that. Although I suppose with earphones you get it, but I remember old hi-fi buffs. I remember when I was probably a teenager and I did some work experience, and the guy that I was working for was a proper hi-fi buff. So he was saying vinyl was way better than CDs. But he was saying that in the early 90s, before the vinyl sort of boom again. And he had, the record player with the ultra lightweight head on it. It was balanced. And he had the special cables and valve amps and everything. And the speaker placement was so important that, that when you were listening to something like a Beatles track or Dark Side of the Moon, where they in the mix, it's really important. But now, your Alexa in the corner, you don't get the benefit of that.
No, you don't. And I think that's a shame. But as I say, the Echo Show 1010 with its very quiet. I don't know. Let's do a quick test. See if you can actually hear this move. Echo. That's just turned to face me.
No, I couldn't hear that now.
And it's spun all the way around basically, and it's so quiet. It's amazingly quiet. I don't know how they've done that. The motor is pretty astounding. It's good. It works really well. I think I will go along with a lot of the reviewers who have said that it's very difficult in the UK to find placement for it. It's the perfect thing for the American kitchen island approach. A lot of American houses have kitchen islands with power on the island, whereas in the UK, if you have a kitchen island, it's very rare it has power to it. So I think it's difficult to work out where you place it. I've got it sort of in a corner of a room and had to restrict its movement. And it can track all the way around. But it's got some really clever ideas in there. I think it's and certainly the whole AI's ability to follow you around and to know when you're facing it leads to quite a few possibilities, I think.
Yeah, I suppose you don't get. It's in the same way as we look at someone when we talk to them in person. And that gives you so many clues. If you're in a room of people, you look at the person you're talking to, so the other people know you're talking to that person. And I suppose that stops the false positives. False negatives and false positives, I guess, as well. It's I'm just trying to see if I can find the subscription I used to get. The guy who was talking about this the other day, because one of the YouTubers was pointing out that maybe this actually is the end of the wake word, because if you can look at it and talk to it, it may know that you need to talk to it. I must give the proper credit to this guy. I'll see if I can find it in a second. But it makes sense. So if you're looking at the device, you don't, like you said, you don't need the wake word because it can see you looking at it. I quite like that idea, because you tend to look at it anyway. I don't know about you, but even though you don't need to. I always tend to look at my device when I'm using the wake word anyway. So I'll give you a chance to find that. While you're finding that, I'll show you the solution that was sent to me. A couple of people sent me this. I was talking about how can you get your retro computer onto a modern TV, because a lot of them don't have the UHF inputs on them. I mean, some do, but a lot don't. Or you've got a 4K monitor like I've got, and how do you get it on that? So I had this solution, not quite what I wanted, but it was recommended to me, and it actually seems good, called ZX VGA Joy, which is a little interface, which I'm just showing on the screen as well, that plugs into the edge connector on the Spectrum. It works on the original models, and I think it works on the Amstrad ones as well, if they've got those, they've got the edge connector on there. So it plugs into the edge connector, and you can plug VGA cable directly into it. So you can plug the VGA, VGA to HDMI or whatever you need out of that. But it's also got a joystick port on there as well, so you can plug a joystick into it. So you in the Spectrum, you may have bought a Kempston 2 interface or.
Oh yes, yeah, I remember the Kempston 2.
Interface 2. There's their Interface 2, which I haven't got one of those. I've got the Interface 1 on up there, but not the Interface 2. So this enables you to do that anyway. So it's not quite what I was wanting, because I was kind of wanting a sort of universal controller. Here you can see it plugged into one of the later Spectrums, but yeah, so it does the job anyway. So it gives you VGA, and apparently it's very good quality as well, and it has its own. It's not taking the video display from the chip on the Spectrum. It's actually doing it itself, but it runs at the same clock speed and everything else. So it's doing the video decoding, not relying on the Spectrum to do it as well. So apparently that makes it quite a good solution. What I was hoping was,
sounds really good, actually.
Yeah, I was hoping for some kind of tuner, tuner to do the same thing, which you can get, and I did get a link on this here, which I found on the Spectrum Reddit. But these are a bit more expensive because these are RF modulators and demodulators, which are used by professional broadcast. So yeah, you're going into so this exactly this pretty much does what I want it to do, but I think this was an Amazon US link. $115. So it would kind of do it, but this is obviously MTSC as well, so I'm not even sure this would work for us.
You'd get an NTSC Spectrum.
Yeah, so I'd have to get a Timex.
Yeah, Timex, whatever it was. Yeah.
Yeah, but anyway, so
yeah,
there are some solutions out there, but what the research that I found is don't go on Amazon and look for HDMI modulator, because they work the other way around. What they do, they're designed for old TVs, so you can plug your new stuff into old TVs rather than the other way around. So they take the HDMI signal and convert it to an aerial signal, antenna signal.
You want HDMI demodulator, don't you?
Yeah, that's right. Which is what these are. There's like this coax. There's a coax one there. And apparently it's just great. It's a good signal and everything. It's just it's more expensive. $115 that one. I'll have to find the. Anyway, I'm not going to spend that. But although a lot of people I was talking to people. A lot of people say you're not really getting a good experience unless you really watch it on a CRT with the lined sort of displays and everything else. So it's not quite the same. But anyway, give us some options. I dug out my picture one is up there as well. And you know what I dug out this week? I'll show you this. I was in the loft looking for my retro computers, and I found my original Surface RT. So this is the original one. Still works. I had to repair it, as in run a repair on Windows RT, but it works. And the original keyboard, remember the flat keyboard? So there's no. And I tried typing on it, and it's not very nice to type on. I've forgotten. I've forgotten really what it was.
It was pretty horrendous, wasn't it? But we loved it at the time. Yeah, we got the.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and actually, when you look at the size of the original one, it's quite thick actually. But then when you compare it here with the Surface Go, there's not a huge difference in size between the two of them. You know, it's only slightly bigger, the old RT. So actually, you know, when you compare it with the Surface Pro form factor that you have now, you can actually see it was quite a lot smaller than the Surface Pro. So it kind of grew over time. So it's good to see the Surface Pro actually bringing that smaller form factor back, because of course this felt like another world to me when I got this. In terms, I mean, all laptops are nice and slim and lightweight now, but I can't remember what I would have had. Maybe the Toshiba. No, I would have had I was using probably one of the HPs at the time. Maybe one of my tablet with HP tablets. So yeah, this felt like a revelation. But I came across it. We got the Surface 2 up there, but that was the first time I've played with the Surface RT for some time. It's a shame it's not supported now because it uses Internet Explorer.
Yeah, that's a shame.
Now, wouldn't that be good if I could flash that with a new modern operating system from Microsoft?
Now there's a challenge for you.
Yes, I don't think that's going to work, because you even with all the toolkits and everything, you've got to have a modern device for modern versions of Windows. We need modern hardware, unfortunately. Yeah. So that's what I was playing around with. Oh, and the other thing that I did ask for on Twitter was anybody wanted to come on the show and talk about the MSX range, and nobody replied on that one. So you mentioned Spectrums and you get plenty of replies, but ZX81s, Commodore 64s, even TIs, but MSX no. But I did find the article on the
I saw that. That was quite cool.
Yeah. So a review of the CX5M Yamaha MSX system from 1986, just making its way into the UK markets as it was at the time. Yeah, it's a shame it never took off. It seemed a good idea when I read about it, but Microsoft's first go at a platform that a common platform, I guess. Was it? Well, yeah, I suppose it was, because it ran their operating system. Was that it was pre-DOS, was it? No, it's about the same time, isn't it?
Probably the same time, yeah. I don't know. Yeah, probably.
This is why I wanted an expert on to come and talk all about it. But maybe when we get to the computer museums, we'll find someone to.
I'm sure we will. If we don't find someone there, I'd be amazed.
I think it's fair to say there wasn't a huge fan base for the MSX range in the UK. It was certainly a Japanese.
I mean, it was definitely, as they say, big in Japan. It was really big in Japan.
But I must admit, I've spent far too many evenings reading these old music magazines now, and especially the old computing ones as well. The computer sections in that as well. There's an article on the RAM music machine, which I had, which is absolutely fantastic, 8-bit sampler.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, which looked like one of the RAM packs. You just plugged on the back, and it had a stereo output. And it was a sequencer and sampler. It was absolutely fantastic. I spent many a time playing that and using the 48K RAM of the Spectrum to. I remember sampling drum beats and drum sounds off it. Fantastic. But anyway, these articles are in there in all these magazines. So if you're interested in music, retro electronic music, and especially the magazines, they're really good. I don't know if anybody's done a similar project with the computer magazines, like the Sinclair User and all those kind of things that were out at the time.
Yeah, the original PCW as well.
Yeah,
I must have told you this story. So way back, I got published in PCW. One of my bits of software, it was a font generator for the Atari, basically using so you could generate on the fly fonts. And the article was, I mean, it wasn't a huge thing, but it was a quite prominent article in that particular issue, and that issue ended up on display in the Science Museum. Opened on the page of my article on it, and this led to me being big in Japan, because at least being big with Japanese tourists, because I happened to be chatting to one of the people in the Science Museum about that's my article, and someone from one of the Japanese tourism people who was bringing around his guide, who was guiding people around, picked up on this and told his load of 30 people who were with him, and I suddenly had 30 people taking photographs of me next to this article. So, that was the way it was. So, but yeah, that was kind of. I mean, it was fun. It was a bit of fun, but yeah, my moment of fame.
that was a magazine I did read before. I guess it was around the time before I got the Spectrum. And I remember just reading this thing, thinking that, look, I think it must have been before I got a computer then, look at these amazing things. It's just, what I can't wait till I'll be able to do, get hold of one of these and what we'll be able to do with it. And it was a real excitement for anyone in that at that time. I think in those early days, and prior to all the micros coming out, the only computers you ever saw were in offices and businesses and universities, and you didn't get to touch them. and then suddenly here are these things you can have in your bedroom with a TV and start playing with it. It was fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's what I like about the Pi. Actually, it does kind of bring that kind of thing back with me. So I've got.
It does. It brings that back.
Yeah. Yeah, I've got a couple of those here. But then I've been playing with some of the Power Automate stuff, and actually, the Microsoft stuff, and actually that brings that level of accessibility and quick wins kind of thing that I think that's something else that I'm sort of getting into at the moment, where you can. I've created some solutions for work that very quick to create and very simple to do and test and roll out. If I'd hard coded them in, started with a blank project template in Visual Studio, it would have took me some time to do. But these things you can just pull these components together and come up with some good solutions really quickly.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's really, really quick to do some of this stuff.
Yeah, especially like all the stuff into Teams and authentication and authorizations.
It makes life so much easier to do certain things and just a way of bringing old APIs into things. I mean, I've mentioned the fact I control my EV charger using a Power Automate script. Which is so easy to do. It really is so easy to do.
Yeah, I keep thinking of maybe setting some of my own stuff up, because I've got a few rules, things like when certain things happen on Twitter that it sends me a notification, and I've built them using. Well, I used to have them using IFTTT, and then I replaced it to Zapper. I actually think Power Automate's got a Twitter integration, so I think they're probably a much better solution of doing that. So I think I might have a go at doing some of my home stuff in there. But all you need is an Office 365 account, and you're set it up. But I think even the personal ones have got some level already, and some trials if you want to try them as well.
Yep.
Okay. Now, what else did we have? I think that was everything I had for this week's show.
Yeah, we're back to the summit and see what we can learn, which we can't talk about for the next 6 months.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. I'm just hoping we'll get lots of new shiny things to test, because as that icon in Windows 10 showed up, these new icons in File Explorer. I like new things to see, even though it doesn't make a huge amount of difference. They are nice to see that, and it brings it just subtle small changes, but they make it look fresh. I think probably the most useful thing coming out, I know, is just that the paste from the clipboard. I really want that to come now. So there are a few things, and I want these new icons. So I want to see these features come down to the regular builds, but we'll have to wait a bit longer for those. We'll have to continue testing those on the Insider program. But yeah, one of the takeaways I got from the summit this week is that Microsoft do like the feedback that Windows Insiders give, and it is all looked at, and if you have issues, get them in the feedback hub, because they really do want to see that, and it's used. It's not a black hole. It's information that they do use.
They absolutely use it. Yeah, it's incredibly useful to them. So do keep plugging that feedback in. Yeah,
absolutely. One thing I would mention as well is I've got my my new car now. And I think it's 4 years since I changed, so since the last car, and the in-dash stuff is amazing how much it's improved over the last 4 years. It's all touch screen now, and Spotify apps are all built into it, and all the music streaming services are built into it now. So I think the car companies struggle to keep up with the evolution in technology and with all the technology, keep up with all the technology changes, don't they? That's coming, especially with all the EV vehicles as well.
Which that reminds me of one story I did want to bring up. Android Auto has been locked down until recently to Waze and Google Maps for navigation, but they freed it up recently. And one of my most favourite EV navigation programs a better route planner, which is what I used to plan my route across to Germany the other year, which is really good at working out where you need to stop and having the most efficient journey, and actually basically planning your stops so you don't spend too long charging. Is now available in Android Auto with its latest beta. So you have to get on the beta program and you can test it out, but it works brilliantly, and you can just have it up on your screen or anywhere you can have Android Auto. You can run it now and use it to navigate and plan your route, and it does all sorts of clever things like integrate with certain cars, and so it knows what state of charge the battery is and can start warning you if you're getting it too low and tell you what to do and where to go, and even things like you need to slow down to avoid running out of charge. So I mean, that won't happen, obviously, because cars don't run out of charge these days because they've got plenty of big, massive batteries. But it's a really useful thing, and I do like the fact that that's now been opened up, and not just for the EVs world. Having Android Auto up to other programs allows a lot more flexibility on that. So it's good to see that actually happening.
Yeah, I think Android Auto, obviously didn't work in my old car, but new one does, and it worked pretty well with the Note, but I did struggle to get it to pair with the Surface. So I need to perhaps try and work out why that is. I'm not sure if it's to do with the dual screens. It gets a bit confused, but
yeah, I can imagine
I'll test it.
I mean, it should do, because the way it actually works is it renders to whatever the device it's rendering to is.
Yeah.
So if the screen's widescreen, single widescreen, it should render to that, and so it shouldn't really care what the screen structure on the device it's rendering from is. But maybe it does.
I'll have a go with it, but I found that the in-car stuff is pretty good anyway, so I don't really need to use the Android car, but Android Auto. But yeah,
as a petrol head, I don't know if you saw Kia's EV6 launch today, but they did this amazing thing where they actually had the EV6 GT, which is the top of the range version, which is pretty quick. It's quicker than my iPace, and they raced it in a straight line, basically. It did one of the typical Top Gear drag race against a Lambo, a Ferrari, and the only thing which beat it was the McLaren one. And this is a family car, basically, and it just proves that every electric vehicle is a sports car.
Yeah, and of course, the McLaren P1 is a hybrid.
Yeah. So, yeah. I mean, that was remarkable. Because it was just pulled away from everything. It was kind of all these really expensive supercars.
If any, especially UK viewers, listeners, if interested, I think Top Gear a couple of weeks ago did think about the rally cars of Formula, the electric rally cars that are going. It's early days for the series yet, but they were amazing. I mean, I think it only had about 20 minutes of thrashing, but what thrashing there was, it was fantastic.
Yeah, well, they optimised that for thrashing, basically. They've taken the same view as a lot of short course petrol vehicles used to do. I mean, I remember certain rallycross cars used to run out of fuel basically after the 2 laps they used to do on the rallycross. It was they were just burning through it. So I mean, that's basically the same principle they're using with these electric vehicles, where they've optimised them to basically churn out as much torque as absolutely possible. It's amazing to watch.
Yeah, this is fantastic. So Gary, where can we find you and your fascinating tech and your EV stuff on your iPace Owners channel? Well,
obviously fascinatingtech.com for the magazine, iPace Owner, youtube.com/iPace Owner for the channel, and on Twitter at Gary WMA.
Excellent. And you can find me at iSticks on Twitter. We'll be back same time, same place next week. Hopefully we're back with Richard. And until in the meantime, we'll see you then.
Take care. Bye.